Well, it's a group called Taxpayer Rally. There are lots of groups here that are supporting this, and they really say that they don't have a designated leader. They say they're all joined in patriotism and in the ideals of the American Constitution. Now, thousands have turned out. Some would say tens of thousands have turned out for this taxpayer rally here in Washington. It's called a Tea Party. They call themselves patriots, and their cause, of course, they say is to end what they call the tax and spend policies emanating from Washington. Now, this group and groups like it have largely been associated with the right-wing and conservative themes, and while there definitely is a strong showing of those viewpoints here, it is at best an uneasy alliance, and many of the people that we have spoken to say that they aren't happy with both parties. You might say it's a bit of a migration of this movement, dissatisfaction with what they say is business as usual.
There is so much disinformation out there that it's frightening, frankly, in a free society that depends on information to make informed decisions.
I want to get into the fact that the German media, the French media, the Russian media, the British media, all reported at least 2 million people, one of the biggest marches in U.S. history in D.C. yesterday. One of the biggest marches in U.S. history. In fact, the headline in the Mail, one of the biggest papers in England, up to 2 million march to U.S. Capitol to protest against Obama's spending in Tea Party demonstration. And we're simulcasting the radio show at prisonplanet.tv, but if you go up to prisonplanet.com, even if you're not a prisonplanet.tv viewer, you can watch time-lapse video from the local news stations from on top buildings where they weren't just filling the mall, they were filling other major side roads for miles. Well over 2 million people. If you fill the mall and then the area of the Capitol, that's about 800,000. It was well over 2 million. CNN, the New York Times, the Austin American-Statesman, where I live, they all reported that it was thousands. Thousands, a couple thousand. Well, there you can see on your screen the time-lapse photography just of one area off the mall, and then watch it fill up that street as you look back over 2 miles down that major thoroughfare, completely, totally jam-packed and filled for over 2 miles.
There's been massive research documenting the fact that the media are extraordinarily subordinated to external power. Now, when you have that power, the best technique is to ignore all of that discussion, ignore it totally, and to eliminate it by the simple device of asserting the opposite. If you assert the opposite, that eliminates mountains of evidence demonstrating that what you're saying is false. That's what power means.
Here's something interesting. I found out about this sort of on my own. We went, hey, where's Ron Paul? And then we made some phone calls. You weren't in. I saw you interviewed with Wolf Blitzer on CNN. It wasn't mentioned. I don't think, and I don't want to be unfair, I didn't see it on MSNBC or any of the other cable channels. I mean, it seems like a big story. I mean, what do you do? Do you call Fox News at this point and go, I want to know why I was excluded? I mean, yeah, you seem like a gentleman. You don't seem like that guy. But it seems like you should be kicking somebody's ass right now. I mean, you're being extremely polite for something I think you got screwed over quite you know, I mean, I might not necessarily agree with you, but I think as an American, we like to see everybody get an equal shot, especially someone who deserves an equal shot.
Okay, let me do a little kind of a situation with you here. I'm going to say a topic, and if you can give me a one-word response. Iraq.
One word, okay.
Iraq.
Iraq. We need to come home.
Mainstream media.
Well, The mainstream media, I can't do it in one word.
There's my man Ron Paul. There's a group that is yet to be heard from, and it's called the Voters, and they do have a way of turning things upside down.
Ron Paul did participate in all of the Republican debates, but after they ended, TV anchors ignore him. According to the tracking company VMS, Ron Paul's name was mentioned just 4,695 times on TV news and cable shows from August of 2006 to August of 2007. What a comparison? John McCain was mentioned 95,005 times.
It's sort of, how often should I go on Bill O'Reilly's show? How much has to be you know, I don't care what the questions are, what the challenges are. Just let me give an answer.
All right, so I just want to get we don't need a history lesson, but I do want to get this on the record.
You have to understand.
I do understand the region, but we don't have time to do the history lesson tonight.
Taking earmarks or putting earmarks in the spending bills, then I think you'll be consistent. Let me ask you about this. Let me ask this.
Part of it. And Fox, I think, is tied pretty close to some of the national policy issues. And
but you're a Republican.
Yeah, but they don't. They're not. That's the problem.
There are reports, sir, that your campaign has received a $500 campaign donation from a white supremacist in West Palm Beach. And your campaign had indicated you have no intention to return it. What are you going to do with that?
It's probably already spent. Why give it back to him and use it for bad purposes?
Mainstream journalists rushing to judgment when they post stories online. A New York Times blog reported this week that presidential candidate Ron Paul seems to have Nazi problems, saying he was meeting with neo-Nazi groups and taking money from a white supremacist organization called Stormfront. But a correction says that Stormfront didn't donate to the Texas congressman and that Paul didn't meet with these groups. An editor's note says, quote, the post should not have been published with these unverified assertions and without any response from Paul. You know what they say about bloggers.
Blogs. They're so vicious and so ridiculous.
Conservatives like to talk and liberals like to type.
Hillary Clinton, why'd she go to firedoglake.com?
She could have chosen a less controversial site.
Is this sort of the start of a witch hunt, sort of almost vigilante?
Radical internet assassins.
McCarthyism watching these people.
Media Matters targets conservative guys. There is a witch hunt on.
The power and influence of the left-wing blogosphere is alarming even some liberal journalists.
Quote, the smart stuff is being drowned out by a fierce, bullying, often witless tone of intolerance that has overtaken the left-wing sector of the blogosphere.
Then I went to the blogosphere, and oh my goodness, it's some of the filthiest language I've ever seen.
It's just a sort of blog-driven, conspiracy-driven thing.
Innuendos, falsehoods.
The Daily Cost, that's the left-wing blogger who is not respectable.
That's the dangerous thing about a blog sometimes. It's a one-way communication. Boy, the internet certainly complicates things these days.
I'm not just talking about the United States, but in terms of you having a global media enterprise. I mean, have you shaped that agenda at all in terms of perceptions of the war, in terms of how the war is viewed?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we've tried.
Tried in what way?
Well, we basically supported our papers and our television. I would say supported the Bush policy in the Middle East. We've been very critical of its execution. But I support it.
Tone of most of the media coverage as the sabers were rattled, as the invasion of Iraq gradually went from possible to probable to almost certain.
The president essentially giving Saddam 48 hours to get out of Dodge. War now seems all but inevitable.
Short of a bullet to the back of his head or he leaves the country, war is inexorable.
Well, I think that's exactly right. War is inevitable, and it is approaching inexorably.
Is war with Iraq inevitable right now?
I think it's 95% inevitable.
You, at this point, right now, tonight, don't see any other option but war. Do you?
I'm asking you, Ambassador.
I agree. I don't think there's a viable option for the administration at this point. We're way too far out front in this.
Send us over there, guys. Let's get on with it. Let's get it over with.
Showdown Iraq. If America goes to war, turn to MSNBC and the experts.
And in many ways, the U.S. news media were equal partners with the officials in Washington and on Capitol Hill in setting the agenda for war.
We'll take you there.
And although it's called the liberal media, one has a great deal of difficulty finding an example of major media outlets in their reporting challenging the way in which the agenda setting for war is well underway.
We maintain our strength in order to deter and defend against aggression, to preserve freedom and peace.
No one, friend or foe, should doubt our desire for peace.
The United States wants peace.
We seek peace. We strive for peace.
When you talk about destruction